All right, a couple of quick housekeeping things. We're not going to do the Sunday night, the late Sunday night pod. We may do one Monday day once we have a little more information. We don't want to be too quick to react because we have 2 weeks to go for the Super Bowl. But look for something.
All the Pro Bowl props won't be listed by then either. So I mean,
yeah. But we will have a look ahead to the Super Bowl early next week. Probably sometime later on Monday.
Does Tom Brady start the Pro Bowl if they lose?
These are all questions that I cannot answer for you. But here's the biggest one. It's your Jesus here. It's officially your Jesus here.
Yeah.
You turned 33 today. You don't look it.
Oh, you don't look it as a two-directional statement. So
I'm just saying you don't look it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, 3 times 11.
Do you feel
We've had this weird numerology with my daughter because she's going to turn 6 and I'm 3 plus 3, right? Wow. And when I was 31, she was 4. So it's kind of been 32. She was 5. So it's been kind of a fun little game I've played with my daughter. Now you know how old she is too.
Wow, you should build a cross out of large planks of wood and play when Jesus was 33. He carried this for all our sins. That'd be a good game too.
Yeah.
He also fought and defeated Satan at age 33.
Well, we do have an Andy Benoit tweet here, so that is still on the docket.
I was going to say, and the Chiefs are playing the Patriots. So maybe this is the year.
Maybe this is the year. Although
you're also wearing the Bad Christian Podcast, which is
it's a good
sweatshirt.
The thing, the Patriots as the villain, leave me with that. I can't do it, man.
It's a little contrived.
It's a little contrived.
It's a bit much.
Is a little bit of an understatement.
At the beginning, I guess it's just a meme that got put out, but I was totally fooled by it. I thought that Kansas City, in all their brilliance, people sometimes hear Kansas City and like, oh, Kansas City, it's a great name, it sounds great. They need to put the Missouri on the end there to properly get the context for what it's all about. Kansas City, Missouri, it seemed like created an ad for Tom Brady's retirement. And I saw that and I go, okay, it's over. Like they've cursed themselves. But apparently Kansas City itself has done nothing. This is all made up. The Patriots are the ones really pumping this up. It worried me a little bit, and now it just feels so fake.
Well, the fact that like last week the Chiefs were literally scared out of their mind to win the game because they hadn't won a home playoff game since Joe Montana. The idea that the next week they would be all haughty and overconfident because they're facing the New England Patriots, I find is a storyline that is complete BS. But whatever you need to win your 6th Super Bowl, I guess.
Here's the storyline that I think is pertinent. The Patriots are playing on the road. Hold on. That's not the key. Because they're the worst team in this matchup. That's why they're playing on the road, because they didn't win as many games as the Chiefs did. And the Chiefs deserve to play at home. They're the better team. That is the real important part of this, right? The Chiefs should be favored. They are favored in this game, and it's not any more than what you'd expect for home field advantage. So it's not some sort of like disrespectful, slap in the face type thing. We'll get to that game in a second here. Want to start with the dark web. It's not a question. It's really a dark web piece of food for thought.
Consideration, that's what we were calling it.
Well, I think food for thought works because we're sponsored, of course, by Sampo Ranta. It's a sparkling water for men, finally. And as they have done throughout the season, they've had a flavor for each week. And this week's flavor, something special. The Sampo Ranta flavor this week is recycled Big Mac with a hint of Rome has fallen and I can't get up. For that time of the year where you're out of money, maybe you lost it all gambling it away, and all you can do is pick through the garbage to feed yourself and your family and maybe anyone that you invite over, even if they're a special guest. So grab your Sampo Ranta and head over to the dark web where Andy Benoit sits.
I mean, is there any like picture that like more accurately sums up some of the things that are going on? And then, of course, there was no white milk there, though. So maybe like we're just connecting worlds here.
There was none, but Andy Benoit did have some.
Yeah, he tweeted
milk.
He tweeted today, January 17th, 2019, 8:43 a.m., bright and early. The hashtag LA Rams this season are 11-0 when they rush for at least 135 yards, and 3-3 when they don't.
Spot the lie.
I don't see any lies, actually. Yeah, and you know, if you are uninitiated, you might have seen that game against the Dallas Cowboys the other day and thought the Rams' ability to run the football was the most important thing in that game.
Well,
oh really?
Yeah,
oh,
that's how they won the game.
That is how they won the game. They won the game by handing the ball to a
generational talent.
He's generational in some ways.
C.J. Anderson could have eaten the entire White House spread in about 3 hours. Actually, maybe he already has. Maybe that's just that guy is killing it and has done so despite weighing twice what Todd Gurley weighs, forcing more missed tackles.
In the Rams' highest scoring game this year, how many points did they have?
53.
54. How many rushing yards did they have?
In that game?
Yeah.
Was it like 65?
Yeah, it was 76.
Yeah. I mean, people not getting causation versus correlation will never cease to be hilarious. We should think of there needs to be an apt punishment. I don't think getting drilled on Twitter really works because to me, actually, Andy Benoit, that's his goal, is just to trigger people on Twitter and take them away from doing the jobs that they need to be doing in order to separate themselves from him. Yeah. Right? It's a brilliant tactic. It's really something quite special. But there needs to be some sort of hell or purgatory that you go to when you mix up.
Well, luckily I'm in my Jesus year.
So this is a question for you.
What I think is hilarious is he doesn't even get the endpoint fallacy. He doesn't even do the endpoint fallacy wrong. You know, the Rams are actually, if you go all the way down to 100 yards rushing, I believe are 12-0. You know, but like there's such a gap. Like he doesn't even
135, great number.
Yeah, it's just so stupid and arbitrary. So obviously, as we talked about the other day, you know, we talked about numerous times, teams that are ahead run more because that's how you eke out the clock. You could make an argument that the Dallas Cowboys enticed the Rams to run the football the other day and just were less successful than some teams in stopping it. But the Rams average almost a full yard per pass attempt more than they average yards per rush attempt. So I don't really understand how that proves anything other than the Rams were enticed into a suboptimal game plan and the Cowboys were not able, with their quarterback play being such as it is, Dak Prescott, the worst quarterback in the playoffs at the time, unable to take advantage of it.
Yeah, the Rams squeaked that game out thanks to a Cowboys team that probably shouldn't have been there, but were, because the NFC East is a dumpster fire. And the best thing about that game really is what it's going to do for the Cowboys' future, which is plummet them into oblivion forever, or for a long time, which is going to be pretty funny.
Hate to see it.
Hate to see that happen to good people. It would be nice, actually, to be honest with you. I would like to see the Cowboys be good because we watch them on TV every week. Like the Cowboys would have to sink to such depths, which they probably won't after they extend all these players. They'll continue to be mediocre, but that means we're just going to have to watch them play because everyone's like, oh, they extended them. Therefore, these players are good. Let's put them on primetime games.
Isn't the Amari Cooper trade the perfect example of what happens to Dallas?
It worked.
Exactly. Well, drafting Zeke, drafting Zach Martin, like their draft picks, even though they're not like position for position very valuable, they end up being good players, and so they're not ever terrible because you have good players, right? And Amari Cooper, I don't think anybody would trade a first-round pick for Amari Cooper except for them, and Cooper's been great, and so people are going to be like, oh, it worked, and then they're not going to look at the process that necessarily went into it.
The best part is that everyone thinks that trade is justified now. Everyone. I don't understand. People are dumb. All right, well, that was Andy Benoit's dark web consideration. Unstable stat of the week this week is brought to us by a dearly departed soul, Nick Foles, no longer with us this postseason. But we talked about it last year. His playoffs were incredible. They were really just so unsustainable. And we talked about all the different things that he did. Deep passing, play under pressure, third down. He hadn't taken a sack on third down for a while after coming back this year. Highest pass rating under pressure. All these things, we know they're going to regress. They did this year. Completion percentage dropping by 12 points from last year's playoffs. Passer rating dropping by 45 points. Poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, instead of having a ball ricochet off a defender into your receiver's arms, the ball ricocheted off your wide receiver's hands into a defender's arms. So you can see the unstableness.
Weird how that goes.
in crucial situations, not turning for Nick Foles this year. Interesting question. Obviously, there's so much to go here. Nick Foles, where does he end up next season?
A lot of people talking about the Jaguars. I'm going to say, what about the Giants?
I don't hate – well, Nick Foles will have his own free will because they're not going to trade him, right? Because I think he's owed $20 million guaranteed.
Jesus.
He's $20 million guaranteed. And so he'll be left to pick his own team. I don't mind that so much. I don't. It's going to be interesting because the Kyler Murray, domino is a big one, and I think some teams will be holding out for him. Obviously, you have Dwayne Haskins as well. Will Grier to a lesser extent. Foles, we've seen his warts at times, right? And we've seen when a team like Minnesota buys into a guy like Kirk Cousins with clear warts, how if you buy into Nick Foles and he's average, and you're like, oh crap, we're going to be 8-8 the next 3 years. Like, how uninspiring is that for your franchise? You'd almost rather be the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't know. It's a really interesting question.
It'll be interesting to see whether he's just looking to pick up the most money possible or if he actually wants to win. He's already won a Super Bowl, right? So theoretically, his goal would just be to pick up as much money as possible, in which case probably the Jaguars.
Hold on one sec. He doesn't even look at the scoreboard.
Right.
You think he even cares about the money on the contract? Come on.
Well, that's why I'm saying the Giants are a possibility, because the Jaguars suck. That's a big issue. The Jaguars have done a great job of surrounding themselves with running back talent, and that's why Nick Foles might not want to go there. Offensive line, not great. Don't have a lot of pass catchers.
Can I suggest one team?
Yes.
The Los Angeles Rams.
As a backup?
Yeah. Right all the wrongs. Right?
I'm sorry. What are they going to pay him as a backup?
I think they.
Why would he go? Why would he go to the Rams as a backup instead of staying with the Eagles?
Give him a 5-year, $50 million guaranteed. Trade Jared Goff once his rookie deal is almost up. Okay. Let Nick Foles be the bridge. Draft a guy number 1.
What have you been drinking this morning?
Nothing.
How many cups of coffee until it's like 7 shots worth of vodka? That's a terror. Okay, we'll move on.
We talked about the middle range quarterback, right? The Case Keenums, the Nick Foles, those guys. Like, if he's not going to return to Philly in that role, he could go somewhere like Los Angeles. And how much better or worse are the Rams with Nick Foles over Jared Goff?
Moderately worse.
Yeah,
they probably don't beat Dallas.
I think that they would. I think that they would tolerate Nick Foles for the opportunity to do what no team has experimented with, which is to trade a quarterback who is not a superstar, mortgage the future for, in Jared Goff.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with Jared Goff, because I think Jared Goff and Sean McVay have the mindset that is going to allow them to continue going and actually work out a deal that allows them to be competitive. Cause
a lot of big contracts for their good players, though. Donald, Peters, all those guys.
From everything that I can tell, from the few people that I've talked to who have spent time with Jared Goff and Sean McVay, they have spoken so highly of them from they get the process standpoint. So I'm going to hold out hope that they can figure it out. We're going to move on to the conference championship games. Within this, of course, a couple of really interesting storylines. We're going to start with the first game, which is Rams-Saints. The matchup from, was it week 10?
I think it's week 9, maybe even.
Week 9. The Rams, of course, went to New Orleans. That game got off to a really bad start for the Rams, right? They're getting absolutely shellacked. They had a couple of really bad calls go their way. That fake kick where pretty clearly they picked up the first down. Inexplicably, the ref ruled them short. And then they had that incredible pick made by Anzalone, really turned the game on its head. But in the second half, they came back, made it a real close game. Of course, since then, that team has regressed a little bit. The Saints, a 3.5-point favorite as it stands right now.
Yeah, right. So when we saw this exact game in this exact circumstance early in the season, the line opened on the Rams side early. Rams were undefeated at the time. It was bet out to New Orleans, I think minus 1.5, and then bet back over to the Rams. You're sort of showing that 0 is not really a key number. You'll see that now this is definitively in the Saints side. You're either going to get a flat 3.5 or you're going to get a juiced 3. And I think what that's suggesting is that a lot of the stuff with respect to New Orleans over the last month and a half is noise, and a lot of the stuff with the Rams over the last month and a half has been process-driven. The fact that Jared Goff, among quarterbacks left in the NFL right now, has the worst negatively graded throw rate. Obviously, Todd Gurley's injury, that's nothing, but it probably matters to people who aren't thinking that deeply. And then losing Cooper Kupp, who had the game-tying touchdown in that game prior to when the Saints got on a run at the end. I think all of those things push us in favor of the Saints. And then a couple sneaky things that I like about New Orleans here that's going under the radar. The Philadelphia Eagles were highly rated in our ELO system despite their 9-7 record. The Saints beating them looks unconvincing to most, but to us it's not as bad of a win necessarily as it would look to the general public. So that's why I think we like New Orleans here.
And people have overvalued the Cowboys all season long.
That's right. So when you look at what happened last weekend, people say, "Oh, the Rams ran all over the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 8-2 in their last 10 games. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant." Saints got a 14-0 deficit, won 20-14, needed an interception at the end to win. Eagles struggled all season. They were playing with a backup quarterback. That game sucks. We would I think disagree with both of those, and that's why I think the Saints are a good side here.
Yeah, I think the Saints are the only side, and it sucks to say that because I would love to see the Rams win. I'll be rooting for the Rams in this game from a moral standpoint. But the math, I think, sides very convincingly on the Saints for a multitude of reasons, and the first being that, look, if it's 3.5, I think you could make the argument that 3.5 is just what you should give the home team in New Orleans. Like, New Orleans is a really tough place to play. That place is going to be off its rocker, and it's a conference championship game. Yep. Like, it's hard enough to go there in the regular season. So 3.5 to me seems like what you'd give the home team in this situation, and I think there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it that the difference between these two teams is more than 0. I think the Saints are a better team. The coaching here, we talked about this a ton before, right? Sean McVay usually has a huge edge from a coaching side of things. But in this game, Sean Payton is his equal, if not maybe a little more aggressive in situations that he needs to be. For all of the love that I give Sean McVay, the decision not to go for that 4th down late in that game against Dallas was inexcusable to me.
Yeah. Both top 5 coaches in our metrics. Here's another thing that's important. So we talked about Kupp, right? Kupp is a big loss. Kupp in that game had 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. If you look at the target distribution for Drew Brees in that game, Michael Thomas was brilliant. 12 catches on 15 targets, 211 yards, touchdown, the game-sealing score. There were no other wide receivers in that game that had more than 3 targets. And even the next highest guy was Kamara with 5 as a running back out of the backfield. Ted Ginn has gotten a lot. He's been much maligned in his career for dropping passes and everything. But as we saw against the Eagles, when he's in the game, the Saints want to throw him the ball, and he has enough speed to scare defensive backs. And I think we'll just add a small dimension because, I think the Rams defensively are pretty talented. Talib, Roby Coleman, Peters has had a rough year, but he's talented. Joyner at safety, Johnson at safety. Like, they're going to probably need more. If you play this game out 100 times, they're not going to be that many Michael Thomas 12 catch 211-yard games. They're going to need a second player to step up. Their tight ends have been kind of weak all season, so I think Ginn is probably, the place where you look and you say, okay, there's a little bit of a pushback here to the idea that the Saints are a one-trick pony, and that's kind of what I like as sort of a secondary or tertiary level variable here.
Tertiary. Wow. Just in your 33rd year, really blossoming into all we knew you could be. The total in this game, look, I can't imagine not feeling like the over is the smart play with these two teams playing one another. But what you just described, the fact that it's a conference championship game, there's probably a little bit of nerves going on here. 56.5 is a high number. What do you think? Well, if you had to go one side over under,
and it shades a key number too. So so 56 here being a key number. If it's at 56.5 or more, I actually like the under as a shade only because of exactly what we saw in the Saints versus the Eagles game the other day. That was an over game. 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, another touchdown in the second quarter. We had some, but what you can see is Saints take the ball, use 12 minutes of it to get 1 touchdown. Right? That's not an over. That's an over-inducing, sort of dynamic in the the 2000s or the 90s when over-unders were in the 40s. 56, you basically need to have these teams score on every single possession and have the possessions be relatively fast. The Saints are not an explosive team from a down-the-field standpoint. The Rams can be, but we've seen their willingness to run the football and run clock. That game between the Rams and the Dallas Cowboys was pretty high-scoring, would not have gone over this total because of pace. So for me, I think, even though they're two great offenses with two great offensive minds, I might be more inclined to go the under here. I'd probably just leave it, though.
Yes, I think if you had to take one, you would go
under.
Go with the under. So Saints Saints -3 would be the pick that we have. That's going to be our lock of the week. Sadly, I hate to do that to the Rams, or maybe you're welcome, Rams.
Yeah.
But look, here's the simple fact. You mentioned negative grade rate. Most stable thing amongst quarterbacks when you're trying to predict something going forward, you want to rely on stable metrics. That is what the algorithms will do in order to make their predictions. And since that Chiefs game, Jared Goff 19th in avoiding negatively graded plays. Of course, first in that is Drew Brees.
Well, and here's the other thing. So the Saints are third in EPA allowed on early down runs, second in yards per carry allowed total for the season. The Rams are a smart team. They're not going to try to run into that. Mm-hmm. The Saints are also a smart team, meaning they're not going to fall for play action. We've weeded out the chaff here, right? So I'm
going to hold you to that.
Yeah. So they're going to rely. This is going to be a straight up game for Jared Goff, right? He's going to have to throw against defenses who know that he has to throw, and to the degree that the Saints, with Eli Apple getting better, them using him properly, strong play from the safety position. Sheldon Rankins is out, but they get a decent pass rush sometimes, and their linebackers are athletic. It's gonna if this game is gonna be won by the Rams, Jared Goff is gonna have to win it, and I'm just a little skeptical.
I'm with you there. All right, the nightcap. I'm glad this is the night game because this is the one that I'm most excited to see. Another rematch. New England this time traveling to Kansas City. The Chiefs, of course. Just a magical season for them. The Patriots, really anything but sort of a tumultuous season. The Josh Gordon thing, Gronk disappearing. Tom Brady has not been what Tom Brady was for the past couple seasons. Still been very good, but not quite as great. So this is really interesting because now the Patriots are playing, as you said, the underdog card. They are 3-point underdogs in Kansas City. It's going to be about 24 degrees. And I don't know where the right place to start here is, but I guess here's my question. Where do the Patriots have an advantage? Because to me, 3 points, that's saying that the Chiefs and the Patriots are equals.
Assuming Kansas City is even
just 3 points.
Which I would argue for more, which means
of course, you were wearing a Kansas City beanie earlier. But let's say it's 3.
I should have wore it to the podcast.
Yeah, it would have gone great with your
There goes our claims of impartiality.
No, but at best, this is saying these two teams are equal. And so the question that I would lead with is, where are the Patriots better than the Chiefs?
I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult because I would say probably the secondary, and I would say I would say the back seven, they're better than the Chiefs in the defensive side of the football.
Okay. I think that's the only answer. I think it's pretty decisive, right? Like I would
especially given how they match up, because the Patriots are able to use their backs out of the backfield. Colts are not, frankly.
And then you've got the scheming part of it. Like I'm sure I will bet on Belichick's defensive scheme 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000. Right, I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to.
Although
mitigate.
I think Andy Reid is more Belichick's. No,
I'm talking about defense.
Yeah, but
right, like if you're measuring back sevens, it's not just how good the players are; it's how good the coaches are going to put them in positions to succeed. I love Bob Sutton. I think his take on what to do with the Chiefs, given the Chiefs' personnel, is great. But you got to take Belichick and his back seven, right?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And the question then becomes, is that good enough? Because I think...
Wouldn't you say that there's a decisive advantage at every other position for the Chiefs except for quarterback, where you certainly have to give the advantage to the Chiefs given how well Mahomes has played?
And are we only recoiling on saying that it's a decisive advantage because of history?
I think there are a couple things at play. The sample size on Mahomes is still small.
Yep.
And I think here's the important thing about Brady. We've seen him do things in the playoffs that have been very impressive. We've seen him do things over the past couple of years that have been very impressive. And this season, he slowed down. And I really think what we saw last week was a result of having that week off. Now, it's probably worn off a bit, but that game against the Chargers was certainly not tiring, right? It was not that. I think maybe there's a rejuvenation in Tom Brady. His arm looked really sharp. He was on the money. Over 80% of his passes were accurate. We saw that one to Edelman, of course, but that was just one of many that day. To me, Tom Brady has a really good chance to play a lot better than he's played this season.
Yeah, and that's,
that's why.
Right, because if you just take this season, the quarterback position is decidedly in favor of Kansas City, and Mahomes seems to have busted a lot of those myths, right? First-time quarterback in the playoffs, your horrible record going in to last week. He busted that. Tom Brady, obviously. And so the only issue I have here, and this is going to get to our sort of trend zone here, is how much better the Chiefs are at home defensively and how much worse the Patriots are as an entire team on the road this season. So this is our pal Joe Osborne at JTF Oz. Patriots home and away splits. So basically net yards per play, they're more than a yard better than their opponent at home. That's ranked second. Points per game margin of victory, first. Red zone, all that kind of stuff. Opponent third down conversion, they're sixth and third respectively. On the road, they actually have a negative point differential this year and a losing record. Negative net yards per play. Red zone efficiency, bad. Third down conversion, bad. Some of those things are unstable, the red zone efficiency, the third down conversion, but the efficiency metrics are not. And so is this something where it's completely noise and we just apply the same road field disadvantage, or is it something where I think this particular Patriots team, which in the past has struggled on the road in the playoffs, is this something that we have to take into consideration more than we already are? All
teams struggle on the road in the playoffs. That's the
thing, right? So when somebody points this out, right? I think that they're over responding to noise.
Yes.
Is that what you would say?
Yes, I agree. And I think the same can be true of the Chiefs defense at home right now. But what's interesting is I think you can be overreacting and there can be some truth to it. So let me give you my take on this whole Chiefs defense at home thing. the Chiefs' defense relies almost exclusively on their pass rush to be really good. If not, they might as well not go onto the field because they are going to get torched. When you're at home, when you have that crowd on your side, it is much harder for the offensive line and much easier for the pass rushers. So I think some of that is true. For the Patriots, the offensive line is so crucial because if they can't get the bare minimum of protection for Tom Brady, he's not Pat Mahomes, right? He is not going to scramble around and make a ton of plays. And it's just with Tom Brady, you need to get him as many clean pockets as possible because he will sit on the right side of variance for a while under pressure, but he's not going to be able to do it repeatedly day in and day out. It's just, not going to happen. So I think it is a worthwhile matchup to consider, but it's not the biggest one.
Yeah, and we had that. There was an article, I believe, on The Athletic that was trying to quantify how much slower tackles are coming off the ball when they're on the road versus when they're at home. And I do think the way that the Chiefs try to win defensively is, I think, a little different than we would advise, which is to rush the passer and pray for your cornerbacks in coverage. And while the prayers are appreciated, I think that we would probably want them to cover better, which is usually what the Patriots do. But given that that's your approach, being at home would be a higher advantage there. I don't know. So what are you thinking in terms of the spread here? The market has it at -3. Our number bigger than that, or more negative than that, I guess.
More negative. As much as it's always important, I think, at least I always think of it this way. Okay, what is my gut reaction? And my gut reaction is not what I want to listen to. My gut reaction tells me, in my opinion, what a lot of other people think. Because I think a lot of people go with their gut. So my gut reaction is Tom Brady's an underdog. Love it. And I think that's depressing this number a little bit. I don't think it should be just 3.
Yeah.
I think it should be at least 4. The Chiefs are a better team than the Patriots. They lost by 3 points in New England to a much better, to a good Patriots team. Yeah. And Pat Mahomes played like Josh Rosen in the first quarter of that game. It was maybe even the whole first half, you could say. Yeah. It was a travesty. And they almost came back and won that game. So there's no excuse for, in my mind. So
Patriots were stronger back then. They had
Josh Gordon.
They had Josh Gordon. Rob Gronkowski was 10 years younger when that game was played. And the Patriots, I think one of the things that could be going into people's handicap, which shouldn't, is the lack of Kareem Hunt, right? So Hunt had 80 yards on the ground.
Do you really think that is?
105 in the air. He was explosive.
You really think that is playing into this?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So I agree. I agree with you, but I don't agree that it should be a thing. I think Damian Williams is just fine.
Might be better than Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if he is or isn't.
It doesn't matter.
But
same number of yards per rush with Kareem Hunt and without.
Chiefs had Orlando Scandrick in the secondary back then. Eric Berry could be coming back this weekend. They didn't have Daniel Sorensen at the time. Justin Houston was out. Our guy Breeland Speaks. I was running with the right outside linebacker spot. True. He had 60 pass rushes and 1 pressure in that game. The Chiefs are far stronger and far healthier at this point in the season than the Pats are. I don't know.
So
I would lean Kansas City as well, despite me trying to.
You're not allowed to lean either way,
yeah,
because of your Chiefs beanie. Here's the big point, and we've taken way too long to get to it, but. Getting back to the quarterback conversation, here's why I think this number is 3. I don't think it's the Kareem Hunt stuff. I don't think it's the Belichick, Andy Reid, chokes in the playoffs thing. I think it's that people view Pat Mahomes as this erratic quarterback. They go back to that Patriots game and they go, oh, well, he's going to throw you 3. And Tom Brady's not.
There was a narrative before the Colts game saying if you shut down, all we need to do is shut down Damian Williams and force Mahomes to throw.
You want Mahomes to throw. It was funny because, prepping for that game with Chris, the one thing I kept hammering in was the Chiefs are great at destroying these zones because their quick game, their screen game.
Open receivers.
It's a well-oiled machine. And sure enough, Mahomes is 90% of his yards inside the pocket less than 2.5 seconds. It's just
over half his yards against the Colts were after the catch by his receivers.
But I want to get back to this because people view Mahomes as being this guy that's going to make mistakes, and Brady is not. Since that Rams game where he did make a couple of mistakes, had some turnover-worthy plays, he is third in the NFL at limiting negatively graded dropbacks. Drew Brees ahead of him, as is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, interestingly, not nearly as many big-time throws, of course, as Pat Mahomes.
Watson's came at a price, for sure.
Tom Brady is 12th. So the guy that has actually been more erratic of late has been Tom Brady. And that is, I am more confident in what I'm going to get from Mahomes, I think, than what I'm going to get from Brady. And I know that's heresy, and I do think Brady has greatness in him. But I don't know how you could argue against that using math.
If you're backing the Chiefs, the thing that you have in your back pocket is that Mahomes' two most erratic games came in halves of games, and they came on the biggest stage. The rest of the season, he's been the second best quarterback at limiting negatively graded dropbacks throughout the season. We saw a bad half of football against the Rams. We saw a bad half of football against the Patriots. We saw his whole career at Texas Tech where he was behind by 2 touchdowns in every single possession, it seemed like. And we ignore the fact that, he is not erratic. He's not a turnover-prone quarterback. He's not, he's all these positive things, and I think the negative things are overblown. So question here, speaking of offense, the total here sitting at 55.5. It opened at 57. With the temperature and the wind and everything, the rumors thereof, it went down to 54.5. Now it's back up to 55.5, below the key number of 56. Where would you lean?
I'm going to lean. I would not touch this, and the reason I would not touch it is 24 is still cold. Watching that Chiefs game last week when it wasn't quite that cold, but it was pretty cold, about 30. There were a couple of passes that Mahomes put on the money that
dropped,
were just stone cold dropped and stone cold used there on purpose. Like, that worries me a little bit. I don't have a whole ton of faith in the New England supporting cast either.
Nope.
So this is a high number. I would not be surprised to see it sail over, but I would stay away from the
Chiefs running defense being the issue here. I could see the Patriots trying to take a couple drives and have them extended with Sony Michel, and not necessarily for the efficiency's sake, but for the time of possession's sake. You're absolutely right. We had the over last week as the lock of the week for the 14.5 for the Chiefs. That second drive contained like 3 drops. Funny, Mahomes overcame it and they still scored,
right,
but it was not. And Tyreek Hill dropped a long touchdown pass at the end of the game, third quarter or so. So I do agree. I think I'd still probably lean over, but only because if it happens the way it happens the last time, which one of these two teams gets up early, the other quarterback is capable, as Mahomes did in the Week 6 matchup, of just putting up a ton of points coming from behind. So that would be my only pushback there, but I agree at laying off it, and I think if you're going to play a total, you should probably play a team total first half.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I have a first half bet that I think is sound. But what's your team total here? I want to hear this.
Well, Patriots are 13, and I believe that's minus 120. The Chiefs 14. Last week they were 14.5 minus, I believe, 140, and that came down with the weather. Right now I believe it's 14 minus 120. Although the last time I looked was yesterday. I think 14 is a pretty solid one to go over for the Chiefs. 2 touchdowns in the same reason
last week.
The same reasons as last week. They score multiple touchdowns in a quarter more frequently than any team in the NFL. They're explosive, right? So like the Tyreek Hill touchdown, it doesn't require you to spend 4 minutes to score the touchdown. You eat it up right there. Their kicker's pretty good. He's only missed 7 kicks all year. All that factors into going over a team total there. You need less to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say I would not mind taking Kansas City minus a half in the first quarter. I know that you like the coin flip thing can be shaky, but they're 50% on scoring touchdowns in their first 2 drives. Yeah. Like, it's ridiculous how good they are at doing that. To me, there's going to be the Chiefs are going to go up in this game. It's just a matter of whether there's going to be some sort of magical.
Have there been any James White props posted because James White's props went over in the first drive of the Chargers.
Okay, the second one that I was going to bring up was, what would you put the Chiefs, the first half line at for that game?
Well, it's tough because you don't just like cut the full game line in half. So I would put it at -2.5.
And that's what it is. I would say if you can find it, cut in half or 2, I would take the Chiefs. I love the Chiefs in the first half. 2.5 is steep given that the total,
Well, this is another case for the whole game total as well, because we talked about this last week and why we picked the over in the first half. The Chiefs have consistently in the playoffs gotten out ahead of teams and then struggled fading. You could see a clear and unequivocal desire to not take the foot off the gas last week against Indy, right? They'll probably do the exact same here, knowing 28-3 against Atlanta 2 years ago. The Chiefs' history blowing leads in the playoffs. Like, if the Chiefs get out ahead, they might play as aggressively as they did against Indianapolis last week. And unlike it against Indianapolis last week, they'll probably be more efficient doing so, given that the weather is probably not going to be as snowy, at least. Probably as cold, but not as snowy.
What about under 27.5 in the first half?
I hate unders. I mean, that's begging you to go over, right? The 27.5, because the key number of 28 is begging you to go over. I think the over's a trap too. So I would just lay off of it.
Yeah, I could see the first half being a little lower scoring than the second, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Like the last game, right? So we had the over in the last game as well as one of the green line picks. It wasn't a pick we printed, but that game had, I think it was 21-9 at halftime or 17-9 or something. So it's kind of right on that border there.
All right.
Yeah.
So we are tied with our picks. I won the Eagles. Thank you, Jesus, to get us back to even.
Will Lutz.
Yeah. Well, and Alshon Jeffrey.
That's true.
Kicked it right back. So both of us, I assume, are taking the Saints.
Yep.
Okay, I will take the Chiefs.
Can we do the over/under in one of the games?
No, you.
All right, fine. It's difficult. It's difficult for me to, but I will go with the Patriots in this game then.
You are.
Well, we can't not.
Well, we have the Super Bowl left to go.
Fine. Well, so we're not going to pick a total here as part of our competition.
No, our competition is picking the games against the spread. That's what every single pick has been. You're not going to all of a sudden amend the rules. All 2 of them.
We only picked 2 games where we've gone against each other.
Right, but we've picked every game during the playoffs against the spread.
All right. Well, I'm going Saints Chiefs. That's what the numbers say.
Okay. I don't want you to feel the need to go against what you want to pick, just to make it an interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
How about this? Here, olive branch. For the Super Bowl, since we will be tied, if we don't have a differing opinion on the Super Bowl itself, then we can extend to some props.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
Perfect.
I'm just trying not to lose another dinner. Already purchased you a dinner. And you've been so great on Twitter that I'm going to end up owing you another dinner.
Yeah, it's okay.
Sucks.
I have willpower.
Also missed your great takes.
Well, I was going to say, am I so bad at Twitter that me not tweeting is being great? Jeez.
No, that's not what I meant. I'm a kind and compassionate person. Okay, we've gone on for long enough. Let me just ask you this. Super Bowl that you most want to see?
Saints, Chiefs.
Least want to see?
Rams, Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, I root for the model, so that's one of the issues, but I also think
Rams, Patriots would be
a rematch of the Super Bowl that started the Patriots dynasty. So that would be a cool,
kind of cool.
I also think New Orleans, New England would kind of be.
So I actually have a different. I want to see Chiefs Saints. That obviously, but the one I least want to see is Chiefs Rams. I don't want to see that again. I already watched it.
But don't you think
the best iteration of that game has already been played?
Oh, but 2 weeks of Booger trying to take his statements about the running game, about the morality of. Can you imagine Louis Riddick talking about the morality of football going downhill?
Has Louis Riddick retired now that the Bears were terrible?
No, I thought it was the Cowboys because they have a defense. Or was it the Ravens?
You picked the Bears to go to the Super Bowl. Win the
Defense
Super
wins
Bowl.
championships.
I still believe in complementary football where your defense is good and your offense sucks. It's proven. Time tested. All right. That's all we've got. We'll see you guys on Monday. Peace out.